What's up, gente? What's up, Raza? I want to talk about the Supreme Court this morning and its latest ruling and how this is so dangerous, and that I got to talk about it. Even if you're not familiar with how these courts work, from the federal court, the very highest, which is the U.S. Supreme Court, and there's federal courts below them. That's the highest and most powerful one, final decision maker, right? And down to the state level, the federal courts around the country, local courts, county courts. Uh, it's a big deal because what the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on April 29th of this year, that was last week as I record this, is that from now on going forward, you could racially discriminate against people. This is called gerrymandering, and it's a term, it's a concept, it's an old concept actually, goes back to the 1800s in Massachusetts, where politicians learned that they could carve out their own districts. That means they could choose their voters versus the voters choosing them. This is why people all over the world laugh at us when we talk about democracy here in the United States, because when they hear about this kind of stuff, it makes no sense. How can you preach democracy when the politicians get to choose their voters and not the other way around? And it's a good criticism, critique about the U.S. System, especially the justice system. And in this case, it's more than just now making it legal for these politicians to purposely discriminate against people based on race, purposely exclude people based on race. Not since 1965, when the president of the United States was Lyndon Johnson, Martin Luther King Jr. was, fighting for, equal voting rights. Still, this was done then to prevent people from discriminating against others because of their skin tone. And this wasn't just for African Americans at the time. No, this was for everybody. This applied across the board. And for a long time, the Supreme Court said politicians can continue to gerrymander. They said, yeah, it's fine, which that's a whole different discussion I got a problem with, where, politicians choose their voters versus the other way around. Well, in this case, now they said you could do it legally based on race. And here's why I want to talk about this as well. For a long time, I've been saying that Donald Trump is pretty much he's got a green light to do whatever he wants with this U.S. Supreme Court. That the Congress, the third branch, the second branch, or actually the first branch, the most powerful branch, is supposed to be a government of the United States government, which is Congress. The legislative branch, and then you got the executive branch, which is Trump, and then you got the Supreme Court, which is the judicial branch. There's three branches of government, and all three are supposed to act as a checks and balances, keeping each other in check to make sure that we have a functioning government and democracy. Supposedly, that's not been the case for a while. By them continuing to do what they do, they continue to give Donald Trump a green light to discriminate. They continue to give right wingers, Republicans, racist, white nationalists. They continue to give these ignorant people with the right to do what they want. And this is true with this case in Louisiana I'm talking about right now, because the governor, as soon as the Supreme Court ruled that way, canceled elections. The elections were already in progress in Louisiana. He declared a state of emergency. Now, get this in there. Now, if you're black or brown, the largest populations down there of black people are in the southern states. And it was purposely done by a white governor where people had already voted. They're in the process of voting, right? He cancels the elections and he declares it a national emergency. That in itself tells you where their priorities are, to discriminate. And so on this channel, I've been talking about, since I started it, restarted it this year, I've been talking about, we have to talk about these big ideas, right? We have to talk about these big concepts so everybody can understand. It includes us. We're not going to focus on this pettiness and foolishness and individual, knocking of people. We're going to talk about big issues. This is one of those big issues, because many people, including myself, thought that racial gerrymandering might not be struck down for a while. This is important. This is why I want to tell people that they need to vote. They need to flex that political muscle. Well, with this ruling, now more than ever, we need to flex our political muscle. We first need to organize ourselves, unite against some basic principles, some basic ideas and values, such as our children, our communities, our schools, our healthcare system. These are basic ideas that we should care about: who gets treated at the hospital, and how much do we have to pay, why do we have to pay so much to stay alive, right? Why do our kids have to be shot up in schools? Why do we have to, why does it have to be illegal for ICE and police officers to beat us down because of our skin color, or arrest us and stop us simply because the way we look, right? That kind of discrimination. And this is important. So now more than ever, following this Supreme Court case, they have not just given a green light to Donald Trump, but all the right wingers and these crazy warmongers, white nationalists across the country that want to destroy us. Those of us who are here first, those of us who have roots on these lands and in these are indigenous to this country. Now more than ever, we've got to organize and we've got to know the issues. And right now, there's some basic stuff that is going to be up for grabs, including for those of you who are tired because of the economy paying higher gas prices, right? Well, you got a crazy war that didn't need to be started in Iran. That doubled gas prices, the highest it's ever been. So if you don't care about anything else other than your selfish, ideas of how or your selfish values of how much gas price are going to be, then there's a chance for you to start waking up and join us. If you have a selfish idea about you don't care other than how much money you're going to bring home, think about it. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs. A lot of you guys are not going to have jobs. A lot of us are not going to have jobs if we get dismissed because of these crazy wars or these policies that these politicians are passing. So again, more than ever, this is the call to action, raza, gente. This is a call to action to unite, come together. This Supreme Court is not only giving the Republican Party and right wingers and the corporations the right to do as they please, but they given them now the right to also discriminate freely against people of color in a place that matters most. And I'm gonna say this again because I said it this weekend. I repeated this. I was in Venice this weekend. I was in Chicano Park last weekend in San Diego. Well, in Venice Beach, the Chicano community came together. Brown Berets came together to help out with a march that they've been doing for years, put on by the unions and the local people of color, raza. Basically, they had danzantes, Aztecas, lowriders came out. They have even charros on these giant horses. It was beautiful. Flags out there, it was beautiful. But they never had brown berets since the 70s out there providing support for them. And we were out there, it was beautiful. One of the things that I mentioned while speaking out there, was that we do have to vote, and a lot of people think we're wasting our time by voting. And to those people, I want to say, if voting was such a waste of time, if voting didn't matter, then why does this government and why has this country made it so difficult for people of color, indigenous people, women, marginalized people, for raza to vote? Why had they made it so difficult for women to vote? Why do they make it illegal to vote in so many cases? For us, if our vote didn't matter, answer that question. Think about it. Why do they make it and why do they go out of their way for us not to vote, including this latest ruling by the Supreme Court? I want you to think about that, Raza. If voting didn't matter, they wouldn't care who voted, right? But no, Trump is even talking about stationing ICE agents outside of voting booths and voting location centers across the country when the elections come around this November, and possibly during the presidential election in 2028. So this is time to come together, Raza. This is disturbing. As I sit here and talk to you, this is really mind blowing. And I was thinking about it all weekend, how to address it. And just to let everybody know, this is if anytime it was time to come together in unity and organize around certain principles, basic thoughts and agreements and values, let's do this. And that includes getting registering to vote and casting that vote so we flex that political muscle. There's more of us and then there is them. And we could outnumber them if we're organized. We can outperform them if we're organized, and we can actually defeat them if we were organized. So now is the time to come together, put those petty differences aside, and come together for the sake of your children, our communities, our gente, our raza. And with that, I'm out. Que viva la raza. All power to the people. Oh.